Welcome to Inspire West Michigan, the podcast that celebrates the visionaries, change makers, and business leaders shaping our region. Whether you're a fellow entrepreneur, emerging leader, or curious community member, Inspire West Michigan delivers content that informs, uplifts, and empowers. In each episode, we'll go behind the scenes with local CEOs, presidents, and entrepreneurs to uncover the stories, strategies, and values that drive their success and inspire our communities. From Grand Haven to Grand Rapids and beyond, this is Inspire West Michigan. Let's dig in. Today, we're talking to Pete Oleszczuk from Westwind Construction. Pete is a second-generation business owner, and today we're going to talk about what it's been like to take over the business from his father. Hi, Pete.
Hi, Amy. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. So you've got a lot going on these days. There's 3 companies. Why don't you tell us a little bit about those 3 companies and what you spend your time doing?
It seems like organizing chaos all the time for what it is. But yeah, so our companies are broken up where I've got a general contracting construction company, Westwind Construction, that my father founded, which next year will be 50 years ago. Very fortunate to have that opportunity to be able to kind of lead it into the new generation for what it is. But then also have Midwest Property Development, which is our development company that predominantly deals with net lease assets and multifamily, and we also dabble in some industrial developments. Then with that, we also have a property management or real estate brokerage company that then manages our multifamily communities that we develop and build. So it kind of gives full perspective on everything that we do. And kind of the total life cycle. So it's been quite an experience to be able to not only appreciate how things are built, but how it kind of starts in the planning and the dreaming phase to how you actually put it all together, and then how it interacts with people, kind of on all fronts, has been kind of an exciting evolution of our organization from being really where my father started just in concrete and flat work, and recognized pretty early that that's not a long-term job for what it is that he wanted to do and what he was aspiring to try to become. And so kind of taking that evolution kind of beyond just building buildings, but then kind of being able to landmark, and really creating homes and commercial spaces and industrial spaces where people can work, live, thrive, and really appreciate what it is that we create for legacies. So
back in 1977, Greg, your father, started this concrete business.
GOE
Yeah. Construction?
Yeah, it was GOE contracting.
Okay, yep. Okay. And, at the time, did he have dreams of it being something bigger than that? Or was he kind of, this is where he started and he was living day by day and then it turned into more?
I would surmise, if I'm anything like my father, that he probably did have dreams when it comes to it. We often talk about the realization of this is great and all, but I need to do something more. His dad was a union pipe fitter, so had a business out in Grand Rapids, did a lot of work once he, obviously, came from Eastern Europe, and when he immigrated here and, really cut his teeth and kind of charted his own path with his own business. But my grandfather retired early, and there wasn't the opportunity for my dad to really, take that any further, nor did I don't think my dad knew what he wanted to do at that point in time. So concrete, he knew he loved it. He knew he was good at it. And so that's where he started. And it's kind of, at that point in time, it became a quick realization as he really started to dabble in it more and more that there was so much more that he could do and that he wanted to do in the industry. And it just kind of evolved from there for opportunities. And
so what do you remember about those days? Because
I wasn't even a twinkle.
Yes, exactly.
I wasn't even a twinkle
but what
at that
do you
point.
remember about the early days and your dad? No stranger to hard work.
No stranger.
He was, I'm sure, up early and home late. So what do you remember about those days and what made an impact on you?
What really made an impact, I remember as a kid, being my dad and who he was in the business. He eat, slept, drank, bled, you name it, the business in Westwind. And, often I didn't get a chance to see him. Family vacations, he wasn't able to participate. I remember as a child, my bedroom was actually just off the kitchen, and I remember I would sleep reverse on my bed, being able to look through the crack in the door to be able to look out my dad, and see my dad reading a newspaper or something like that as he was trying to just catch up on the day.
Yeah.
And then really early on, recognizing pretty quickly that if I wanted to, and it's not an indication. My dad was very involved in what he could be and what he had time for. But really recognizing that, the only way I was going to be able to kind of spend more time with him and see him more was I had to be out on a job site. I had to figure out, like, how could I participate where I would help, where, he could still do what he needed to do in his role and his responsibilities, not only as a business, but also as kind of the provider for the family, that I was sweeping industrial buildings. And usually it was incentivized with, hey, if you clean this building, and this was at 7 years old, you get to run the, remote control car or something like that. And so, very early on, it was appreciate the time that I had, but also recognizing that you have to commit yourself completely and 100%. And you can't waver from that. So if you have any questions in regards to what it is that you want to do or how you want to do it, it's not the life for you. Because it has to be who you are. And that Westwind, as it is for my dad, kind of defines us as individuals. And that just permeates through everything it is that we do. Yeah. So,
well, I mean, if he modeled anything, he modeled that if you're going to do something, you're going to go all in.
100% committed.
Yeah. And you feel like that's the person you are because of that, modeling that, I'm sure.
It's one of those things where I was actually thinking about this from our earlier discussions, and I kind of have this memory in my head of conversations I would have with my dad. And, in a young age, one of the tasks would be shovel snow.
Sure.
And, for my dad, it was, don't shovel a path, shovel the sidewalk. And so it was edge to edge, and it was clear, and it better be taken care of. It's not just the little width of the shovel walking path. It's the sidewalk that you're going to shovel and you're going to take care of. And as that just kind of resonated with me, is that it is that commitment that you're not just doing something, you have to be committed to actually completing the task in its entirety and really, not wavering from that. That is, if you need the sidewalk shoveled, then it's not a path, it's edge to edge sidewalk, and it's going to be bare and it's going to be safe. Period. End of story.
Yeah.
And you just take that commitment to everything it is that I do.
So what kind of kid was Pete Oleszczuk because of that?
Well, I wasn't much of a Boy Scout. I was pretty straight laced. While my sister hated it completely, I was definitely the good kid. And I think my sister tried to counter that as best as possible. And we had, it was one of those where, I was, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. Okay. What time do I need to be here? Didn't break the rules. Was I a great student? No, but school was, school for every kid wasn't exactly the most fun until I really realized where I could apply it and things. But no, I was definitely the good kid. So recognizing full well, and my parents instilled that pretty early on, that, you are a walking billboard for the family organization, and that is paramount, that you represent yourself in everything that, you represent the family. And how does the family get represented? Reputation's everything.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Don't make a mistake.
Right. Do you feel like you knew that you wanted to go into construction? Did you, like, going into college, for example, or even choosing to go to college, did you believe that that's where you'd ultimately end up, or did you fight against that?
It's funny. It was actually the reverse. My parents were adamant that I was not going to get into the industry. Construction, in particular, West Michigan construction, can be so volatile. I mean, it's a roller coaster is kind of the term that I've heard forever. It's a roller coaster. But my parents were adamant that I was going to go to college and do anything but this industry. And so I knew pretty early on that I wanted to earn my way into the family business and be an integral part of what it is that, I believe so strong. And the thought of building tangible landmarks to me it's just so fulfilling that you can't even really put your hand on it. It defines you. And so, no, it was pretty early on that I knew what I wanted to do. It was the convincing of my family that I didn't even get my associates. I did a year at Northwood University, went on a soccer scholarship, wasn't all that it was cracked up to be. And then I did a year, traveling kind of to the 3 campuses for Grand Valley. And I was going backwards on fuel money at that point in time. I was working for an excavator, and it was very complicated. I mean, we were in the thralls of the Great Recession, and everything was complicated. And I recognized at that point in time that it was time to kind of get off the pot and have the come to the serious conversation with my parents in regards to it, and convince them that I didn't need to make anything. I didn't need to be a burden with every other burden that was existing at that point in time, but I wanted to help be a means of a solution.
Right. You were ready to get to work.
I was ready to be 100% committed. Whatever that looked like and whatever that meant, it was paramount for me that I be as best an attribute and, asset to the family as I possibly could be and prove myself. And that was kind of the beginning of what was and what has been really my 18-year journey in kind of this business so far.
So tell us how you first made your mark at Westwind.
Well, it was cleaning gutters. No, it was really
probably doing that too.
It was certainly, I did a little bit of everything. I've got memories of having my arm buried, down a clean out in a parking lot because people flushed the wrong stuff down the toilet, and you have to find the leak or the backup somewhere. But really, for me, it was really seizing the opportunity with Dollar General.
Okay.
And that's really kind of where the development and the construction kind of paired together. And it was traveling all over the place. Every flea bitten motel, I remember building a store in Frankenmuth, Michigan, where that was actually a nice hotel. And then I remember staying in, Ithaca, Bellevue. There was just all these little towns that all of a sudden you just start to appreciate that, wow, there's a lot of places in Michigan. But really where I cut my teeth was the soup to nuts operations, from development, kind of understanding land planning, site location, kind of demographics, how things are constructed, the right way to do things, the wrong way to do things, primarily because early on, I was self-performing as much as we could to try to save money on projects. And so it was just diving as deep as possible to be a part of the solution, trying to, put stuff together, those cups, right? Those cups. But yeah, so it was really, it was the opportunity, and then seizing the moment with relationships that I was establishing with the people within Dollar General that gave me kind of the springboard where it was, it started out at onesie twosie to then it started to do 4 or 5 stores, and then it was 6 to 8. And then we started to get up into the teens. And then it really became apparent that I couldn't just do it the way I'd traditionally been doing it. And so that's when I transitioned more to the office, and we expanded, our team grew, and we were really able to kind of take the next steps of kind of growing the business, primarily for, as my dad likes to put it, the energy that I was pumping into the business, because the Great Recession beat the bejeepers out of people.
Sure.
And so being able to get kind of that re-energize, that boost that was needed, really allowed us to kind of take the steps of kind of moving our game to the next level and becoming a company of the size that we are today, along with the plethora of experience that all of us have. Because once you do 375 plus Dollar Generals across multiple states, you really get to learn experiences very fast. And especially since we've done it in such a, about a 15, 16 year period, it's a crash course in a lot of experiences. So
how long does it take to build a Dollar General?
Well, if you look at the memes, it's really just a mound of dirt that pops up and then all of a sudden a DG's there. But no, it can range anywhere from, I think we've built them depending on situations in 65, 70 days and upwards
65, 70 days.
Yeah, and upwards to, depending on complexity or site work, to 140. So, and really weather dependent.
I mean, frankly, you've made it when you become a meme.
Yeah, well, and I'd love to say it was me that was the meme, but it is, I'd say we were certainly a part of it, because we were one of the first, we were one of the small group of developers with Dollar General in the beginning, and it's kind of been a fun ride thus far. So,
yeah.
And as I said, it's allowed us to do a lot of other things.
So is like, how many Dollar Generals get built in a year?
Oh, geez. Well, we only do a small portion of it, but for a while there, they were pushing close to 1,000 stores a year, which is just incredible to think about with everything you have to do for it. But I think we topped out at about 27 stores a year.
Okay.
And so it's been kind of an intentional kind of, you do that so many times and you recognize the pros and the cons.
Sure.
And it became pretty apparent that we needed to kind of change our pace of play, along with the fact that we needed to continue to work on our diversification. Dollar Generals are fantastic for us. They're good for the organization. They're predictable. We know what that looks like. But as we're working on kind of evolving how we operate, we recognize that we needed to kind of be able to adjust our focuses on things so that, we could continue our diversification, which is kind of how we stepped into the opportunity with multifamily. And that was just let's swing and see if we actually hit something. And we hit a great project at Ridge 45 up in Traverse City, which is now a very large apartment community that we've been fortunate enough to have. And really that's allowed us to cut our teeth in a completely different world. Since we did that over the past 10 years, we've done over 1,000 multifamily units between Traverse City, Gaylord, and outside of Kalamazoo Portage area. So it's been a heck of a ride in that as well. So, and that's really where I feel like I cut my teeth with the land planning and dreaming and scheming and putting stuff together.
So you have been president since 2023.
Correct. June.
And at that point, your dad began at least to step away from the role. At what point, or was there a point that you felt like this is no longer my dad's company?
Boy, it's funny in a family business. It's in particular one that's been defined so much by one individual. It still is. I would say probably, honest to goodness, it was probably in April of 23, April and May of 23, where my dad had, even before I had kind of taken the role as kind of president of the organization, my responsibility was pretty broad anyways. And certainly the energy and kind of the direction and everything that was happening. My dad was he was working with me as being a part of the solution, not kind of a part of the problem that wasn't a roadblock. And so it became pretty apparent to me like, okay, this is becoming more of my identity. It's time for the baton to get passed off. And I would say it was probably that conversation that then led to okay, you can run everything then. And it's been kind of that on and off where it's like, hey, I appreciate that conversation, but like, let's talk to me first type of a deal before, you kind of make those statements. So it's been really, ever since that moment, it's been an education for both of us. That really has, both of my dad and I are very passionate people. So it does test our patience of each other. But if there's one thing that he and I have always come to terms with is that we both are coming at it from, we want the best for not only the family, but for the organizations as well. So that's kind of the base playing field. And then depending on kind of where our decisions go, while we might not always agree, we know we're working towards the same end. And that's been, kind of the level field that we've both needed, being as passionate as what we are, kind of how something's been done for 40 plus years to, hey, I've been doing this for a while now. I don't quite have your history record, but let's try this. And if it's wrong, it's wrong. I'll accept whatever it is, and we move on from there. So
Sure.
It's been interesting so far. But I would say probably 23 was when I really recognized pretty quickly it was time to transition. So.
Yeah. Did it feel different?
Well, sure, yes and no at the same time. It took a little bit for my dad to transition out of kind of that role and response, rightfully so. I mean, it certainly, I think I went into it thinking like, okay, I've got the title and the responsibility, kind of snap your fingers.
Sure.
And enjoy your retirement, Dad. And that was wrong on my part when something has defined somebody's purpose,
right,
to think that was just going to shut off that way. And so I can say that I didn't give my dad as much grace as what I probably needed to, as he's kind of learning to navigate the next phase of his life. But it's been, it's been pretty good otherwise. It's been a learning experience for both of us. In that
I think it's a good lesson for all of us, is that it's, passing of the torch is not something you do and it's defined by a moment. It's an evolution, and it's something everyone has to figure out how to navigate.
Yeah, and it's one thing we found out pretty early, and I had, it's kind of life events and experiences kind of define kind of who we are as individuals. But I recognized pretty early on that, as life goes on, purpose is essential for longevity. Whether it's health, whatever that might look like, purpose goes a long way for keeping people engaged and wanting to get up in the morning and enjoy life and do things. And so I think that's been something that he and I have both appreciated, is maintaining that purpose and making sure that it's aligned, but also transitioning to where it's like, when you interact with somebody for so long, in particular a family member where they've operated as either a boss or a coworker, the conversations so often get defined in kind of different ways, and they consume kind of your interactions as a relationship. And something that we are actively working on is like, look, you've been my boss for a long time. That's not so much the case anymore. Let's figure out how we navigate father-son.
Yeah.
And that's what we're working on trying to get to, is like, let's not have the conversations at the dinner table be about how work's going.
Mm-hmm.
Let's have conversations at the dinner table about literally anything. And we're still trying to figure that out because it's been, we haven't had those. And so trying to navigate, like, what is the topic of conversation?
Sure.
Especially when we are so passionate about what it is that we do. But we're getting there. Hobbies. My dad never had a hobby. I'm trying to kind of throw hobbies into his life to kind of take his focus onto other things. So.
Yeah. Well, when you generationally, I think it's just different now. It's different today. So. Certainly my parents didn't talk about work-life balance the way that you hear people talking about it now. And it's hard as an entrepreneur and a business owner anyway to have, it's just all very integrated. But, it's only been in the last 10 years that anyone's even talking like that, I feel like.
Agreed. Yeah, it's either it's always kind of been you don't have free time. What free time? What hobbies? And we don't have those things. Work is work, and that's your life. Period. End of story.
Right. And you're doing what you love, so it doesn't feel like you're working every minute. I would bet that he doesn't look back at his life and feel like he missed his life.
No, I think that's very fair. And really, he and I are both cut from the same cloth. And we kind of both speak of it the same way, is that when you're so passionate about what it is that you do, it's not a job. It's your life. It's your lifestyle. That's just, your passion is your lifestyle, and you just, the fortunate byproduct is that you can make a living off of it.
Yeah.
And that's really how we both operate. But you're spot on with kind of that assessment. No question.
Yeah. So what have you found to be most challenging in this role?
I'm a guy that I listen to advice, but usually I have to go through something the hard way and find out the hard way to kind of learn and have it really resonate and stick with me. You can run a company, you can be integrated in it, you can be working through it and all that type of stuff. But once the kind of the veils and the filters are removed, it's learning and accepting the fact that you do not know everything, and I certainly won't know everything. But recognizing that is okay. And, I'm not failing anybody at that point in time, but learning every dang day. That's probably been kind of the most interesting thing. And the one thing I wasn't prepared for was, I didn't know as much as I thought I did, but I also think that was a testament to, probably where my focuses were and kind of where I was at. And it's, once that filter has been lifted, it just gives you a different perspective on how to tackle and approach things. So.
Absolutely. And so, transitioning into a president role, having 3 different companies that roll up to you, you don't have the luxury really of working in the business or getting sort of stuck in the muck of the business. You really have to try to elevate yourself to working on the business. Mm-hmm. And I suspect that means a lot of trust has to be given to those working with you. Was that something that you had to learn to do, or was that a pretty well-established cultural thing within Westwind before you, fell into the president's role?
I would say that it was a concerted effort by all parties, but I think probably one of the biggest things that gave me the confidence that I was ready for the next step is that we had surrounded ourselves with such great people that it allowed for the transition to be doable, I think is the kind of the best way to put it. And, the one thing I've always operated with it's kind of the, trust but verify, but recognizing that to surround yourself with good people that are capable, you have to be able to give them the runway to do things the way they want to do them so that they own it. and really recognizing that people are going to make mistakes, people are going to fail. It happens. I would prefer to see my team and the executive team and the people we've surrounded ourselves with fail forward and make mistakes, because I know they're at least trying to do something new. They're trying to kind of chart their own path in some capacity. But really, it's been one where, the team that I've had around me has only been able to help elevate me and the rest of us as we're all learning. Because it's, as we're expanding and we've kind of grown and evolved, just opportunities just continue to lay themselves out in front of us. And it's allowing us to diversify, not only how it is that we do things, but the things that we do. That has been, I think, very appealing to to the team, that, they're always challenged. So.
That's awesome. So, at this point, you've been in the industry for over 20 years. And, how would you describe the leader that you were at 25 versus the leader that you are today?
Oh, that guy.
That guy.
Yeah. I would say, it's kind of comical, because for me at 25, I had such a different perspective on kind of how things are done and expectations of what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do things. I was also on kind of the drinking the Kool-Aid that growing meant you have to be bigger, you have to, you have to have more volume, you have to do this and you have to do that. And as I've kind of gone through the process of kind of scaling up and having more team members, and then, having more sales and having more volume and this and that and trying to do different things, I've really recognized kind of over this period of, we'll say the 25 to 38, that, growing for me has evolved to be better at who we are and how we operate, digging deeper into our quality, digging deeper to the value that we bring, digging deeper to the communities that we make, the communities that we impact, and really work on improving kind of the essential things that define who we are as an organization, and allowing that to permeate through our entire team at that point in time, and making sure that, it's not always, well, we got to be bigger and we got to be, we've got to have more people and I've always got to be hiring somebody, because, I've done that, and you dilute yourself. And it's not because you intentionally do it. It's just because there's only so much of you to kind of go around to make sure that you're appropriately influencing is probably a tough word, but you're trying to make your stamp and leave your stamp on people in regards to this is how we operate. And for me, it's been kind of the evolution of like, hey man, tone down the rhetoric, like grow is great. But let's focus on who we are as a company, who we really want to serve as an organization, and what's the best fit for us going forward. And, I've been using the adage quite a bit lately is, there's this mentality where you kind of go at something with a machete when instead you really want to use a scalpel. You only want it, you want to be really specific and detailed in regards to what it is that you're doing. And you want to make sure you do it right, because you've got one opportunity. Figure out how you do it the right way. So
what is today's primary focus of Westwind Construction? Where are you finding yourself really leaning in on projects? What types of projects is Westwind kind of most focused on?
Yeah, for the past 10 years, we've been very fortunate where the development companies kept us, busy. We haven't had to pursue any client work at that point in time, which has been great. But it also, as we've talked about in and on the business, I also recognize the fact that doesn't create a good process for going forward if the businesses are solely relying on what it is that I am doing as an individual on all fronts. And it doesn't give the opportunity for legacy and kind of future kind of potential for kind of structure and things like that. So really what, has been the focus of the organization is, for the longest time, we were client focused and, building assets for our clients and what does that look like? And for the past 10, 15 years, we've been out of that game and really figuring out how best we get back into that and getting people familiar again with who Westwind is as an organization and a client focused organization as we go forward. And I actually just extended an offer for, a business development and relationship, director for our organization, with that in mind, recognizing that it can't just be me out there pounding the pavement. We actually have to be very strategic and intentional about how it is that we're going out trying to make new relationships and being more present in the communities that we, feel that are strategically appropriate for us to be navigating it. So,
Sure.
But really that's, as I said, it's really been the focus of how do we expand our client business to take some of the pressure off of good old Petey here and really allow us to diversify and really kind of allow us, and in particular me, to kind of get my head above the waves, because when you're operating where you're always trying to feed the machine, you really struggle to be able to look kind of beyond that next project. It's important that you have that next project, but you have to be able to look out farther than that, and being able to strategically navigate kind of the future is essential. And I'm not saying for me, it's not 5 or 10 years. It's let's start looking 1, 2, 3 years. Let's start kind of creating the roadmap there. And then you just keep working on that. You just stay ahead of it. And that's really what's been the focus for me over, I'd say, probably the past 6 to 8 months, and really investing hard in that for legacy.
Is there a perfect mix of multi-unit residential developments and commercial and industrial? Is there a perfect mix that you feel like is the goal, or is it just the right projects at the right time?
I think, to a certain extent, it's economic circumstances that are kind of defining that. I mean, you talk about, a lot of any type of multifamily projects that you're seeing nowadays that are being done usually are having to be, and subsidized is a hard word, but, incentivized in some way to try to make the numbers hurdle. And really until the economics of the deals kind of eliminate those types of roadblocks that exist right now, multifamily in particular is going to just have to be a strategic play and where it makes sense. You don't also want to over leverage yourself, because there's just a lot of things going on in the market. Interest rates are where they are right now, tariffs are on, off again. And now obviously with the Supreme Court ruling, what are going to be the impacts there? And we're also kind of navigating the inflation and just kind of the global impacts of everything that are happening right now. So, and a tendency is multifamily projects, depending on their size and the scale, if you're talking anything over 200 units, it can take you 2 years to put it all together just to start before you even put a shovel in the ground.
Sure.
And then it can take another 2 years to get it done plus. So, I mean, you're talking about quite a window of time where a lot of stuff can hit the fan, where you want to be somewhat strategic when you don't, your crystal ball is a little fuzzy. So, but yeah, so I think, if there's a right mix, it's, on the development front, it's kind of more opportunistic based, and getting back to the roots of, the real estate development needs to be focused on more the right projects, not just getting the project. And really, the construction company needs to be more of, let's work on kind of diversifying our client, whether it's industrial, whether it's commercial, whether it's medical, whatever that might look like. And for me, it's really because, as I kind of mentioned, we've been really out of that world for 10, 15 years.
Right.
So I haven't had a whole lot of experience in it. I know we're more than capable. And I know, our reputation is by far one of the strongest, I believe, in the area. And it's just reacquainting ourselves with people, and businesses in the area, and kind of getting Westwind back to be that familiar name outside of like, those guys don't do anything but stuff for themselves.
Right. You have to get back into consideration for all of those opportunities. Yeah.
And we're really looking for the dreamers for what it is. I mean, where we kind of bring value, as I kind of mentioned, it's, and focusing really on our client profile is, with our experiences, it's been, we're the group that we want to be a part of it. When you can even look at real estate acquisition, it's like, let us help you define what it is that you're wanting to do. And then let's find the right property in the right area that hits all the marks so that you can build what you want and what you can afford.
So as opposed to someone coming to you and having their whole picture laid out, here's my site, here's my plans, here's, what the elevation's going to look like, here's all of this. You're saying, come to me with the dream. Yeah. Let me help you bring that dream to life.
It's something, like all things, you can of course accommodate it.
Sure.
And we can see, we can navigate it and all that type of stuff. But what we're really finding is where we bring value is allowing the professionals, the owners, the investors, whatever that might look like, allow them to exist in the world that's made them successful, where they're even starting to they have the opportunity.
You do what you do best. Well, we do what we do best.
We kind of clear the path through the chaos.
Yeah.
And it's
very turnkey.
And that's exactly right. And it's if we do it early, we can navigate the value, we can navigate the process, and we can help avoid a lot of the pitfalls that go along the way, which, it's tough to kind of go through that and kind of list them out and talk about them. But there's just so many nuances that are involved in projects nowadays, between government regulation, design standards, costing, details. I mean, even just in the light bulb that's spec'd can kind of dramatically change numbers. It's all a part of a process and a plan that you really have to start it from the beginning. And the beginning is when you dream about it. And that's where we're finding we really want to start digging in and finding the right relationships with the right people. And that's taken us a while.
Yeah.
I mean, because, it's one of those things where you can always feel it, and I'm sure you can appreciate that. But then being able to articulate who it is that your ideal client has been a journey for us. So, and I've been fortunate enough. And one of the other things I probably wouldn't have done when I'm 25, as we're talking about it, I never would have enlisted the services of coaches. And because I knew everything when I was 25, and as I've kind of learned, I know less and less, and I have more desire to learn more. And enlisting the service of professionals, we've been working with a sales coach that has really helped us kind of put our mark on, okay, this is kind of the feedback. And what the crazy part is that as he was interviewing the executive team, is that everything was ringing true and resonating kind of across the entire group. So it's not like we didn't know what it is that we were looking for. It's just the fact that we weren't all speaking the same language to get to this, the end destination that we ended up at. And so that's been an interesting part of the journey, but I'm going to keep going back to 25 because I'm also, trying to think of what I was like, and I'm sure I was entertaining for sure.
Well, weren't we all?
Yes.
So when you think about yourself as a leader today, and working with your leadership group and things like that, and I think I kind of set you up with this question in advance, but what do you feel like your team would say is the Pete Oleszczuk way?
I'm trying to remember that answer. I think the sun might have baked some of that out of me. No, but, really it was, reputation is everything, and we always do right. And while it might be at the detriment to the organization, if we're at fault, or if we see something that's, wrong or could be done better, own it and do it. And also, I think, and I probably laid kind of testament to this when we had talked earlier, is, you always hear the conversations of, I've got good news or I've got bad news. And I think really laying it out for the team that news is news. Your perception of whether or not it's good or bad, that's on you. For me, if you need help, if you need direction, this is, it's news, and let's figure out the best pathway forward. I think if, as people are looking at kind of my style and how I operate, it's, and what I look for the team is be solution driven. Always operate with your hands above the table. Make sure you're always keeping everybody's best interest in mind, and recognizing that reputation could be ruined in a moment. Mm-hmm. And so always work very diligently to maintain the reputation that, we've strived for the past 49 years. Right.
So, I mean, certainly there will be people who are listening to this interview who maybe aren't familiar with Westwind Construction.
We can hope, right?
Right. But Westwind has helped to shape a lot of projects across Michigan, farther than Michigan, mm-hmm. But from commercial to industrial to multifamily. Share some of your favorites, and maybe tell us a little bit also about what's going on today.
Yeah, so probably some of my favorites, I remember some of the journey. Oh man, boy, as we start digging into some of my favorites, I've been fortunate enough where, as I kind of mentioned, a reputation kind of fortunately has preceded us and continues to do that. But we were able to do a project in Gaylord, Michigan, which was a large scale multifamily project. And the way that came about is that we were actually invited by the community to come up and do something that's never been done to the size and scale that it is that we built Pines 45. And it was all because of how we operated and how we handled ourselves for a couple of projects we did in Traverse City, which was our Ridge 45 and our Trailside 45 project. Where on Trailside 45, we actually partnered with the chamber and the local community to actually build workforce housing that we were able to, hit the objective right on the mark. And, our reputation in that capacity, really garnered us an invite to actually just come in and talk with the business leaders and participate in something that had never been done before. And that was something for me that was just, it was a testament that, to do the things the way we do things, the Westwind way. And it's incredible the audience that you can garner at that point. So that would be one that I would say was really cool, and just a great experience, and it's been a great community. Other ones are, I know we built, I will always have this memory of I chartered a little plane out of Muskegon because we were building a store up in Calumet, and it was, I want to say it was June or July, and we were flying over Lake Superior, and when you see ice on a lake in June and July, you really just change your opinion of kind of climate and what weather does up there. And when you're moving around snow in June and July on site, but it really gave you perspective of kind of the range and the environment that we operate with in just one state. And it was one of those where you look at snow load, and I know it's kind of, it's like snow load. What's that? It's really the kind of the weight that is going to be kind of put on the roof of the building, depending on where you're at in the state. And the state's got quite a few snow loads. And up in Calumet, it's the highest snow load in the state because you're about as far north as you can go.
Yeah.
And especially with what Lake Superior, I mean, our steel columns were close to 3 feet wide, which is, you look at the size and scale for a Dollar General. What we had to do to expand that building envelope was close to 4 feet just to be able to accommodate the interior, the square footage that was required, and to be able to accommodate the steel structure that was putting it together. And it was just, you have those types of moments. And I've been fortunate enough where I've met families in Tionesta, Pennsylvania, where, on the development front, I'm working on, acquiring some real estate, and it's been in their family for forever. And you're sitting on the front porch drinking tea, talking about kind of what it is that we do, why we do things, kind of the family business. And, I think of those interactions and those dynamics, and it just gives you an appreciation that you can't just assume situations and circumstances. You have to be willing to navigate and kind of interact with people on a personable way that it resonates, that you connect, and we're all humans. We all have something going on in our life. But if you can connect and be genuine and be authentic, the interactions that you can have and the relationships that you can kind of establish along that way really allow it to kind of define, one, not only the interaction you're going to have with them on whatever that process or project looks like, but it also kind of curates how you're going to operate on other relationships down the line. And in particular, people always jokingly tell me, like, I'm the guy that I'm either, and I jokingly say this, and I probably mentioned this to you, I'm either Jesus Christ walking into a municipality or I'm Antichrist. And it's just one of those where you kind of go in and it's either pitchforks and torches or it's people are laying palm branches in front of you. And when you learn to kind of navigate those dynamics of where you kind of have such, certain different polar opposites of interactions with people, it allows you to kind of navigate. And what I found, and you kind of mentioned projects, but for me, it's been more of the human interactions that this opportunity has provided me that I feel is really been probably the most life-changing experiences, because it gives you a level of patience. And I think we've talked about self-awareness and, presence and kind of, how you're being perceived and things like that. It's given me an opportunity to kind of navigate so many different dynamics where, interactions just like this, where you've never done them before and we've only met a couple of times, you can be authentic in your conversations and yet feel very comfortable that there's something, even if there's not another conversation, you feel like you've garnered something from this.
Absolutely.
And that you're able to take it forward. And I would say in the end, I've built some incredible landmarks. To say I've got a favorite one would be probably pretty tough.
Like picking your favorite child.
Yeah, which never do. Granted, my kids always ask me that. I don't understand why. And it's like, well, you're my favorite son and you're my favorite daughter. Like I've only got two, like yin and yang.
That's perfect.
But really it's been the opportunities in relationships that I've been able to, create, have, learn from that. I don't need that dynamic in my life anymore, that I've been very fortunate to kind of navigate. And really, I think that's probably one of the things that I look most forward to, especially as we're talking about kind of expanding into the client worlds and where I'm trying to get more active in the communities and stuff like that, is I really enjoy that interaction. I'm not the best to go up and introduce myself and start a, conversation just off the bat. But I really enjoy just authentic, genuine interactions, where you never know where a relationship could go at that point. So, yeah.
So, certainly housing is a hot topic in West Michigan.
Yes, it is.
And, and you are addressing that firsthand with a project going on right now.
Yeah. East End Flats over right by my office.
Yeah. How's that going, and where are you in the process of development with that project?
That's, it was one where it used to be Spotlight Dance, and, it was one of those days where you're just sitting in a conference room and you say, you know what? I think that could be we've got a better use for that property than what sits there right now. And, fortunately we were able to navigate, kind of the different nuances with the city of Grand Haven. That went really well and got the neighborhood on board. And, that's going to be it's a 4-story, first floor parking, 45 unit apartments, market rate apartments. We were able to work through a pilot program, again, to help kind of offset a lot of the risk that's involved there, since, there really hasn't been a whole lot of projects like this done on the east side. But where we're at right now is the building's down, foundations are going in. Fortunately for us, we kind of broke ground and the weather kind of hit or missed, but we've been, we're hoping to be wrapped up with that project by, I think it's May or June of 27.
Okay.
So as I jokingly tell people, you're either going to be very lucky that I've got kind of a front row seat because my office literally looks right at it, or I'm sorry for whatever wrath you're going to feel. No, but it's really cool to see something like that, and especially get, I can truthfully say I have not done much in kind of the immediate area. We've always been very involved with community, but my life's journey so far in my career has always kind of led me to a whole lot of other places to do things, which has been great. But to be able to do something that's literally right here, and when you kind of walk down the street, I'm interacting with people that, through the community and stuff like that, where the recognition's probably being able to, have Westwind recognized for a project that hits so close to home is really cool.
Have you gotten pretty good feedback from the community, or is it sort of hot and cold?
Well, like anything.
Yes.
I would say, and the best way I'll put it is face-to-face, in-person interactions is really the only ones I give credence to.
Okay.
You're so often going to get the feedback from the people online where, if it's kind of one of those, if you can't say it to my face, then you're entitled to your opinion, but I'm going to actually talk to somebody that actually wants to be productive in a conversation. Generally, it's been very well received.
Good.
Even the people kind of along Columbus there in kind of the neighborhood, I started very early on, where even when there was rumblings of what it was, okay, let's get the neighborhood together. Let's sit down. I met at, one of the, the neighbors' houses, and I said, let's talk about the project. What are your concerns? What can I kind of, because always there's a lot of this stuff of, well, it could be like this. Well, no, this is what it's going to be like. And no, it's not going to be like that. This is what it's going to be like. Or that's a great idea. Let me see what I can do to try to integrate that into the space. And it's been, when you start so early on with inclusion, it's incredible the type of, kind of jet fuel you kind of get as you're kind of navigating and what it does to allow the project to take off. What
have you had to think about in developing multifamily developments today, and to help future-proof them, that you didn't have to think about even 5 years ago?
I think it's future-proofing is kind of tough. I think what we're finding is that, there used to be so many things you would just tack onto the project in the very beginning. You're talking, garages and all this plethora of amenities that you kind of have to wait to see what kind of transpires and allow the resident feedback and the resident interaction to kind of help define what the future of that community looks like. Because in particular, we're seeing a lot of weird things where, each community is different, from how the expectations and how they live and, all that type of stuff. But really it's energy code compliance is a big thing. What does that look like? And what does that mean? Site work, infrastructure, really lifestyles, for the longest time we were, it was, 2 bedrooms were paramount. It was 1 2-bedroom. So that's all you ever built. And with the little splashing of 3s, and really within the past 5-6 years, studio apartments, smaller footprint, more affordable footprints have become just incredibly popular. So much so that they've probably been now overbuilt. And so we've got an oversupply in the market. But I would say kind of future-proofing is really keeping a very well-balanced, kind of diverse floor plan mix between 1, 2s, 3s, and
flexible.
Studios. They have to be flexible. But what it is, you also can't, as you're navigating the process, you can't be so heavily weighted one or the other. It has to be much more balanced. And the other thing is, you just kind of mentioned with flexibility, certainly in our design, and one of the benefits that we have is, if we're doing a large scale project, the cool part is if I start with buildings 1 and 2, I can certainly change based off of feedback, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever that looks like. And so really figuring out how our floor plans are ones where you can kind of almost operate it like Legos, where you can say, all right, this building needs 2 more studios and maybe not a 2-bedroom, 1-bath type of a deal. Or let's take this 3-bedroom and let's turn it into a 2-bedroom and and 2-bath and a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, because we're noticing the 3 bedrooms aren't as popular. Or I don't like the way that closet lays out, or I don't like the fact that the water heater is in this location, or the washer and dryer is in a weird spot. It just, it's future-proofing is kind of an evolution of things for us. Where especially as we're always trying to push the limits and improve, because we have the full life cycle of how it is that we create things. It just gives us a kind of a dynamic that I would surmise probably others don't have as involved as what we do. So
with technology advancing as rapidly as it is, how is that impacting your business? How is AI impacting your business?
Slowly. I think, you hear about AI, and for us, I think, for the most part, construction is going to be what we're seeing the biggest struggle, and it's no surprise, is that, we're losing a lot of kind of the electrical, mechanical, plumbing. We're losing a lot of those guys now to data centers and the construction of what that is. Not only that, we're losing a lot of the material and the availability of some of the electrical components and mechanical components that would otherwise have been, readily available once the supply chain stuff improved. It's been really, AI for us is kind of certainly the crawl, walk, run. I could see where it's, I look forward to some efficiencies. I know we're trying to lean in more on, simple things, content, some things that, while you like to be able to work with marketing, some of the stuff is like, well, if we can just help create some of this content or just improve some of the dynamics and kind of the spreadsheets that, we're working on, try to lean into it. Fortunately for us, I do not see AI right now, which could certainly change. AI really impacting the construction industry as much, but I am nervous in regards to what it's going to do to a lot of the other, you think of manufacturing, and a lot of the other services,
ancillary services.
The other, one, I deal with humans, with obviously living and all that type of stuff. Creating industrial spaces. What does that look like? What does that mean? Is lighting even going to be a thing you have to worry about anymore?
Right.
So you just start kind of or even you think of climate control and all that type of stuff, where they're trying to improve, interactions of the space. Like how deep and how far is it going to go based off of what manufacturing could look like in 10 years? So trying to stay in front of that as best as possible. But I think it would be safe to say that, it's still the Wild West when it comes to AI. And so I don't really know what that's going to look like. All I know is that and it's no joke. Everybody's spending so much money on it right now. It's almost comical. So, but yeah.
So let's shift over to.
Let's shift. Okay. I'm going to pivot.
So you have 2 children.
I do.
And how do you think that has changed you as a business leader, and how has being a business leader changed you as a father?
Ooh. I can say it is giving me it's given me an appreciation for creating more work-life balance. And I can say before kids, it wasn't as much of a thing for me or a focus, but really figuring out, and working through it in particular with the business and kind of how I navigate interactions with employees is, I want you to be an incredibly successful professional, but I equally want you to be an incredibly successful person, and whatever that means. If it's a dad, if it's a sibling, if it's your partner, whatever it looks like, I want you to be successful in both arenas. And before becoming a dad, it was business. I didn't have anything else to draw my attention. What I will say is that becoming a dad has given me an appreciation for bigger picture. Yeah. And it's not, so often, especially being in a family business, there's often the conversation where it's like, well, maybe the kids will take over the business or something like that. And it isn't even that, because I don't want that pressure to exist in any capacity. It's more of, it gives you a perspective where you look beyond yourself and how can you continue to improve things so that, generationally, whether or not they're included or they're involved, you're doing everything possible to make life better for my kids, but also for my kids' generation, and trying to be more a part of the solution than a part of the problem. And I think that's given me, being a dad, it's humbling. I fail miserably at it at times, and I think sometimes maybe I knock it out of the park, and I guess I'll know if I know. But it's given me an appreciation of also, as I kind of talked earlier, is, there's things that, being a parent's terrifying. And in particular in today's day and age, where everything is so in your face, I believe it's even more terrifying. And I usually get that from my parents, where it's like, well, hell, we didn't have any of this information.
Right.
And now we see everything
Right.
that's in front of your face all the time. Like, how do you do it? And it's just, you just do. You don't have a choice. How best do you, how else do you navigate it? And I would say that, patience, appreciation for my wife completely. I mean, she navigates a world with my kids that I can't even, I would much rather try to operate an organization of 60 people, because at least I can comprehend. My kids operate in a dynamic that their creativity is so contagious. It's so much fun, but I struggle so much in it because you're so off, passion defines you. It's out of my comfort zone. And, I think if there's one thing that it has done for me is that it's kind of getting the itch for the creative side of things again. And my daughter in particular is very creative and very artistic. And just the thought process and kind of the questions and the conversations that we're having, where they don't even realize it. They're just,
Right.
if it pops in their head, it's okay, let's talk about it, Dad. And for me, it's like, holy crap, you're actually thinking about, no, I've actually got to think about that. And where are we going to go with this conversation?
It's inspiring,
though. It's awe-inspiring.
Right. I mean, and there are no limits to it. I mean, that's the thing that you get from kids that you don't get from grown-ups, is there aren't any guardrails around their imagination. And I think as adults and, each of us in our own roles, we create these guardrails for ourselves that is limiting. So,
question.
You're certainly a passionate person, and I'm sure that, plays a huge role in what you bring home every day to your family,
good or bad,
and vice versa. I mean, what you're able to bring from home and bring that inspiration back to your team.
Well, and that's the idea, right? And you try to be an inspiration, and you try to just, the joke, and it's not even a joke. It's just try to create good humans.
Yeah.
And that's not only from our kids' standpoint, but that's just from everybody you interact with. It's, there's so much noise out there in the world, and it's just, how do we create good humans so that we can just do this together at this point in time.
Right.
So,
well, if there's anything to end this on, it is just be good humans,
just
right?
Help create good humans. Do the right thing.
Do the right thing. Well, thank you, Pete. Thanks for joining us.
Amy,
it's been a lot of fun to learn about Westwind and about you and your leadership, and just very excited to see what's next.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
You're welcome. Thanks for listening to Inspire West Michigan. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and leave us a review to help others find our show. Visit inspirewestmichigan.com and follow us on social media for more behind-the-scenes stories. Until next time, stay inspired, West Michigan.